Behind me is the Square of Carlisle, a town in south-central Pennsylvania incorporated as a borough in 1751. But the first settler actually arrived about 30 years before that, a Frenchman by the name of James Latour. He traded with the Native Americans. He lived along the creek, which in time would be named in his honor. This town has a wonderful history stretching from the mid-1700s all the way up to the date. Organizations like the Daughters of the American Revolution, the Sons of Union Veterans of the Civil War, Historic Carlisle, Inc., and the Cumberland County Historical Society work to research, preserve, and perpetuate this information. And one thing that they do really well is historical reenactments. And that's why we're here today.
The Shelling of Carlisle. Scene 1. The rebels are coming. The stage has been set. The actors are in place. June and July of 1863 would become forever affiliated with days of bloodshed, heroics, terror, courage, and an undying desire to know more about the people, places, and actions that make this time in United States history one of the most researched and discussed on a worldwide platform. In mid-June, the Confederate Army of Northern Virginia crossed the Potomac River into Maryland and began their invasion of the North. U.S. Major General Darius Couch, who had just been appointed to command the newly formed Department of the Susquehanna, arrived in Harrisburg. Pennsylvania Governor Andrew Curtin sent out a call for 50,000 volunteers to form an emergency militia for the defense of the state. U.S. forces stationed in Carlisle Barracks packed up what supplies they could carry and moved them to the safety of Harrisburg. The Pennsylvania Emergency Militia and the New York National Guard troops began building forts on the west shore of the Susquehanna in defense of the capital. They then ventured south from their defenses to monitor the Confederate movements, going as far as Chambersburg and falling back to Shippensburg. They began building defensive lines of battle. Artillery placements were placed on both sides of the road. Trees were felled to form fortified lines of battle and to slow the enemy advance. Thousands of farmers and business owners hurried north and east up the Cumberland Valley ahead of the conquering hosts, as they were called. The Cumberland Valley Railroad ran up through High Street at the time, carried all valuables and livestock to the safety of Harrisburg. Ahead of the invaders were thousands of people of color, both runaway and freed, fearing that being captured by the Confederates, they would be pressed into Southern slavery. Once the sheer mass of the invading force became known, the Union troops were called back to the defenses of Harrisburg. Carlisle continued in its day-to-day operations pretty much as usual. They had been hearing for 2 years that the rebels are coming. By now, they thought it to be just a rumor spread by children and fools. They had no idea what lay ahead.
Did you hear?
What news?
The rebels! They have made it to Shippensburg and are almost to Newville!
Again, that same tale. Have we not had enough of this cry of wolf?
It is true, Mrs. Bell. I heard it directly from Mr. Campbell at the telegraph office. The line from Shippensburg is down, and our troops are retreating this way to the safety of Harrisburg. What is to become of us?
Ellen Spy, do you not remember the summer of '61 when it was reported that the enemy had burned Hanover and 5,000 Confederate troops were coming this way? The town was in mayhem. Bixler's Hardware loaded their whole inventory onto a rail car and sent it to Harrisburg. The bank emptied the vault and did the same with all of our money. The commotion and anxiety gave my cow and chickens apoplexy. Charlie and I did not have milk or eggs for a week after that. We sent Sheriff McCartney's company of militia to Holly Gap, and what? Nothing. Just a bunch of untrained men with guns who thought they would be heroes. Then on the way back, 19-year-old Will Beecham got shot and killed when one of the rifles went off accidentally.
That was an awful thing. I went to school with Will, and I think of him often. But the rebels did come near here in '62. They raided Chambersburg.
A big show of nothing, just a few stolen horses. How silly we all felt after that. Now stop making a spectacle of yourself in the street and go on about your day. Good
afternoon, Mrs. Thorne.
It is if you want to go round wearing only your drawers all day. I do hope both of you ladies enjoyed my soiree last week.
Yes, Mrs. Thorne. It was lovely.
You have such a beautiful home, Mrs. Thorne. It was such a pleasure to be invited.
Thank you. Now, if you excuse me, I have an appointment with the talented photographer at CNC Skylight Gallery to have my picture made.
If I never go back into that house, it will be too soon.
It was a lovely time until she started playing that piano of hers and yelling the Lord's Prayer to the music.
That wasn't music, my dear. That was an exorcism.
Good morning, Miss Sarah, Miss Ellen. Are you ladies making prepared for what might be coming?
We were just speaking of it, the excitement and terror all at once.
It could be quite the to-do.
Mr. McCartney, you as the county sheriff and an upstanding citizen in this town should be ashamed of yourself for believing in such falsehoods.
Falsehoods? My dear Mrs. Bell, I have it on high authority that General Darius Couch has been appointed commander of the Department of the Susquehanna in Harrisburg. They are building forts on the West Shore, and old Baldy Smith himself will be leading a force this way to quell the invasion from the north, while General Meade and the brave boys of the Army of the Potomac will crush Lee's army in the south. We have that wily gray fox right where we want him. President Lincoln will be receiving Lee's surrender within the week.
How incredible! The war could be over so soon!
And just where did you get that information, Mr. McCartney? From one of those important town council meetings at the Sign of the Ship Tavern, I suppose.
No. We only hold meetings there on the first week of the month. This is the third.
I bid you both a good day.
Mr. McGinnis, I demand to know what is going on here.
Follow me.
It must be in the
Come in
press.
this
John
way.
McGinnis is leading the
I
way.
do know who you are. Come in this square, we'll announce it all.
know what is going on
Everybody, gather round. Gather round. News from the front. Go ahead, Captain Boyd. Tell them what you told me.
It is my unfortunate duty to inform all you good people that the rebels are coming. My 1st New York Cavalry Regiment is powerless against their numbers.
You don't mean you're leaving, do you?
I'm sorry to say so. There are thousands of them about 4 miles away. We've been ordered to rendezvous with General Smith's force in Harrisburg.
What is to become of us?
Everybody breathe. With Carlisle vacant as soldiers, the enemy will do us no harm. Reports from other towns are that the Confederates levied demands for rations or livestock or gold. No towns have been burned or civilians killed. If we stand together as a community, as we always have, this too will go down as another mark of grandeur when the history of Carlisle is written.
My troopers are skirting the edge of town as we speak, heading for a rally point outside of Mechanicsburg.
But sir, when will we know it is safe again?
We'll wait till the shooting stops.
How can they just abandon us? Aren't they supposed to be our defenders?
The last train has already left town. We have no way of getting our wares to a safer location.
This is unacceptable. I will immediately begin addressing a letter to Governor Curtin to address this situation post-haste.
To what end, Mrs. Bell? Order 200 to fight against 20,000? I'm sure Governor Curtin is already aware of our desperate situation and is doing all that he can.
Well, I don't know about you people, but Anna and I are taking whatever time we have left and securing the goods in our store. Saxon's Hardware will not become a casualty of this invasion.
I'll call the town council together so they can best decide how to proceed. But Henry is right. We all need to make readiness for what is to come. Not knowing what that is, prepare for the worst. Pray for the best.
Dear me, this could be the end of our lovely
Compose yourself, Mrs. Bell. While there certainly is a need for a measured amount of concern, hysteria won't do anyone any good. Everyone should go back to your houses, secure your belongings, and stay indoors until the danger is past. Sheriff.
Yes, sir.
Assemble the town council. Get Andrew Ziegler, Robert Allison, Colonel Penrose, and don't forget Kirk Wilson.
Okay.
Tell them to meet me at the Sign of the Ship Tavern immediately.
Certainly. Yeah, maybe not the sign of the ship. Mrs. Bell lives around the corner, and if she sees us conducting business there, you will hear her hollering from here to Philadelphia.
Quite right. Sign of the Bull's Head.
Gotcha.
The town council met with much turmoil over the best course of action. It is most unfortunate that the minutes of this impromptu meeting were not recorded in the usual manner as their regularly scheduled meetings. Who was there and what was said remain a mystery. Certainly, historians can agree that men like Chief Burgess Andrew Ziegler would be on hand, along with Assistant Burgess Robert Allison, Secretary Joseph Oglesby, and certainly Colonel William Penrose, one of the councilmen of the East Ward of Carlisle, and the dashing John McGinnis. Of the recently formed Committee of Safety. What we do know is that a decision was reached to meet the rebels without obstruction and to hope for the best on Carlisle's behalf. Scene 2, the conquering hosts.
Well, that's not a rebel. Excuse me, miss. What are you doing in the street? Haven't you heard about the rebels?
That's why I'm on the move. I live down Shippensburg way, and when they came in, I went out.
You poor dear. We've seen people traveling for a week now ahead of the Confederate Army. Have you family up this way?
My husband's fighting with the Union Army. I have a sister in Oyster Point on the other side of Mechanicsburg. That's where I'm headed.
Well, you must be careful. With that Jeb Stuart riding about wherever he pleases, those rebels could be anywhere.
Thank you for your concern. I keep my knife and shotgun handy. Would rather go down fighting.
I do not believe they would harm you unless provoked.
Those demons, they'd rather shoot you just to look at you.
I do not believe that is true at all. They say chivalry is not so dead in the South, and I think it would be rather exciting to meet a dashing and a handsome...
Wait! What is that music?
I've heard that tune before. Look away, look away.
Dixie! It's the rebels.
We're told to stay indoors.
Waylaid, what am I going to do?
Look, at the end of this block is the county jail. My wife, Catherine, is taking shelter there with our children. Tell her I sent you. You will be safe.
Thank you, sir. What am I to do alone?
Arms in place, rest.
I'm Andrew Ziegler, Chief Burgess of Carlisle. This is John McGinnis, Chairman of our Committee of Safety, and Robert McCartney, Sheriff of Cumberland County.
Gentlemen, I'm Captain John Cooper, Provost Marshal, 2nd Corps. I'm in Northern Virginia.
We meet you, conquering host, under this white flag. There are no Union troops here. The cavalry school, the barracks to the east have been abandoned. We are but a town of civilians.
Your forthrightness is most appreciated.
As representatives of the town, we've unanimously agreed to step aside for your entrance. We understand that when war became imminent, many of our Dickinson College students went south to take up arms.
It is our hope that if those men be with you now, they remember the town of their alma mater with fondness, and they wish it no harm. We also ask that your men not charge wildly through the streets, which would considerably alarm the women and children.
Thank you, Mr. Ziegler. We have no disposition to charge wildly through the streets. I will have word sent back to the column that the town is to be entered peaceably with no intention of destruction or theft of private property. Well, I have here a copy of General Robert E. Lee's General Orders number 73. It reads in part, the commanding general considers that no greater disgrace could befall the army, and through it our whole people, than the perpetration of the barbarous outrages upon the unarmed and defenseless, and the wanton destruction of private property that have marked the course of the enemy in our own country.
Well, that will certainly settle the hearts of the women and children, but no harsh treatment of the men?
It goes on to say it must be remembered that we make war only upon unarmed men, and that we cannot take vengeance for the wrongs we have suffered. The commanding general therefore earnestly exhorts the troops to abstain with most scrupulous care from unnecessary or wanton injury to personal property, and here enjoins upon all officers to arrest and bring to summary punishment any who shall in any way offend against this subject. It is our desire to enter the town quietly with no desire to strike fear into your hearts. Other towns and villages have been quite accepting of our presence and have provided to our wants as directed. We expect the same from the citizenry of Carlisle.
What exactly do you want?
This, gentlemen, will suffice. Oh, thank you, Mr. Ziegler, yes.
Sir, we don't have this much stock on hand. What we had was sent away regarding your arrival.
What you have is until tomorrow morning to deliver that requisition, or the town will be searched to make up the difference. Company, attention. Shoulder arms. Forward march. Good day, gentlemen.
Well?
Well, what, Sheriff?
Well, what do they want?
£25,000 of bacon, 100 sacks of salt, 1,500 barrels of flour, 25 barrels of potatoes, 25 barrels of molasses, 5,000 pounds of coffee, 5,000 pounds of sugar, 25 pounds of dried fruit to be ready at 6 o'clock and delivered in front of the courthouse.
What? No partridge in a pear tree? How do they suppose we are to come up with all that?
I don't think they care as much as how we do it, just that it's done.
We need to spread the word to tell everyone to give what they can. John, gather some men, go to the east ward. Sheriff, you do the same in the west ward. Tell everyone, if we don't give the rebels what they want, they're gonna take it. Gentlemen, now is truly your time to serve Carlisle.
They spread the word as quickly as they could. And as directed by the Confederates, the townspeople began delivering foodstuffs. It was gathered in the open-air market house on the southeast corner of the square. Stalls were filled with all manner of sustenance, waiting to be loaded into wagons and taken away by the soldiers. As the long, gray-clad column of General Robert Rhodes' division moved doggedly up Walnut Bottom Road, turned onto South Pitt, and reached High Street, the various units were ordered to spread out. A couple of brigades made their bivouac at the barracks. Some settled in the fields out the York Road. One brigade was directed to camp on the Dickinson College grounds. There, college president Herman Johnson used a Masonic sign that was recognized by a ranking Confederate officer.
Oh, God.
And an arrangement was reached that all cook fires would be done on the stone walkways so as not to mar the grass. And no harm was done to the grounds or the buildings. By evening, the town was abuzz with hungry soldiers and frightened civilians. Scene 3, the Ruggles brothers.
Captain, we have captured suspicious character.
I need some
Excellent,
water.
yes. Well, bring them on up here into the square and we can get this sorted out.
Yes, sir.
With the wounding and then death of Confederate General Stonewall Jackson less than a month prior, Robert E. Lee chose to reorganize his Second Corps. He chose Richard Lee Stoddard Ewell, described as a compound of anomalies.
So we enter around when he's
The oddest, most eccentric genius of the Confederate Army.
Yeah, go ahead and start.
No man had a better heart nor a worse manner of showing it. He was in truth as tender and sympathetic as a woman. But even under the slightest provocation, he became as externally as rough as a bear.
Good job.
And the needles with which he pricked sensibilities were more numerous and keener than porcupine quills. Ewell had just returned to the army after having his leg amputated as a result of the Battle of Second Manassas. During his recuperation in Richmond, Ewell married a long-time love interest, now newly married, newly promoted, and affixed with a wooden leg that gave him constant pain. He rode in a carriage during the long campaign from Virginia into Pennsylvania.
Right here, driver.
General Ewell, sir.
Captain Cooper, how goes it in Carlisle?
The enemy troops had abandoned by the time we got here. The town fathers willingly let us enter and received our list of demands with little pushback. The town people are gathering those supplies right now.
Good, good.
If I may ask, sir, how is your leg?
You must be jesting. My leg! Captain, my leg is resting comfortably in Loudoun County, Virginia, where I would rather be. The rest of me, however, faring well enough, considering the circumstances.
Yes, sir.
Driver, go water the horse at the courthouse so the captain can continue patronizing me. And what's this?
Oh, my man caught these two Yankees.
Why bring them to me? Send them to the rear with the others.
Well, they say they are not soldiers.
I said we're not soldiers anymore.
We caught them down by the creek a while ago, obviously trying to swim their way to escape.
Is that so?
Sir?
You tell me you are not soldiers anymore. Expound on that, if you would be so kind.
We were soldiers before. We enlisted in 61, served a 3-month regiment, and were mustered out.
I see. And you still wear your army coats?
Yes, sir. Proud of our service against you. Rebels. Should have had our rifles ready to welcome you.
Sir, I believe these two men to be spies left behind by the retreating Yankee army to ascertain our disposition and, as per the Articles of War, we are well within following General Robert E. Lee's orders to hang them both. General Lee does not like spies.
Spies?
Hang us?
You can't hang them. These are two of Carlisle's most upstanding young men. Just because they fought against you does not make them spies.
Mom, making get the nooses ready. We can make short work of this. These bodies hang from a couple of the trees right here in the square as a sign to the town.
Spies? Well, that does call for a harsh punishment. However, General Lee's orders also say that we are not to harm civilians.
We are not spies. We are civilians. You cannot treat us this way. You come into our soil, strip the land of every usable item, every chicken, hog, cow. Now you want to hang 2 men as spies who are nothing more than true patriots. All you rebels are a bunch of spineless ratbags.
Yank, if you can't show some respect in front of the general, I'm gonna...
You're gonna what? Hang me? Hang this, you lice-covered rabble. Run, George!
Enough! Civilians, soldiers, or spies, that kind of behavior will not be tolerated. By them or you, Captain! Gentlemen, let us remember we are gentlemen. And as gentlemen in wartime, it is a perfectly honorable act for me to have both of you hanged by the neck until dead.
I knew dumping all that ammunition in La Torte was a fool's errand. I knew we were gonna get caught. What's Ma gonna say?
Hold your tongue.
Dumping ammunition in the La Torte, you say?
Ah, shucks. When we heard you were coming, we went to the barracks there, grabbed all the guns and ammunition left behind, and dumped them into the creek. But your boys moved quicker than we expected, so we're starting to swim upstream to get away.
And we got there first.
I do say, the fight and fervor of Carlisle's youth hasn't changed much in 20 years.
Huh? You've been here before?
Certainly. I was a second lieutenant of Dragoons. In 1840, traded just over there at the barracks after graduating from West Point.
And now you're back to ransom the town and see its destruction?
There is no ransom. Our list of demands is not a destructive or else matter. And you good people need not worry. Your town is not going to be destroyed by me. What my men need is food, rations to sustain themselves so we can march on from here. Supplies of a military nature. We are not here to steal your silverware. My men are not used to these hard surfaced roads. Not Shenandoah Valley, it's all soft dirt roads for marching. They need shoes and socks to get through this campaign. Look at that lad there.
Hold up there, young man. Reb or not, I cannot let you go walking around on feet like that, tore up as they are.
Sir, any relief you can give would be a blessing. Well, a bit of relief is one thing, but I can't take the shoes off your own 2 feet. Besides, I'm the enemy. Why would you want to help me?
I have another parent home. And even if I did not, my heart breaks for the country's youth, and I yearn to comfort them. Why, I may not be able to change your mind about the side you took during this war, but well, maybe I can change your heart to how you feel towards Yankee civilians. Well, my own son is serving in the Union Army, and I know if he were shoeless and bleeding on a town street in Virginia, I'd want somebody to take this kind of pity on him.
Thank you, sir. Someday I will find a way to repay you.
From the time I first arrived here as a young lieutenant, this place felt different. The breeze that comes down off South Mountain just seems to keep the Cumberland Valley feeling clean and fresh. When we would get off duty and come into town to our favorite tavern, the owner was always so happy to see us, knew all of our names. Of course, some of the boys would get a little rowdy, and the townspeople we would disturb when singing and staggering our way back to post weren't always happy. But we always felt like we had a second home here. And now, to see how this man, who has every reason to hate us, has nothing but goodness in his heart, this is why I still love Carlisle.
Lucy?
It's your sons. The rebels want to hang them for being spies.
Jeremy,
You have to save them.
George, John, what did you do?
They want to hang us, Ma.
I am their mother, Mary Jane Ruggles. Now, I know that my boys can be a handful, but they are good boys, serve their country in an upstanding way, just like all your boys here are doing. Now, I am sure they have stirred up some sort of mischief, but please don't hang my boys. Their father has passed on, and they are all I have left.
Ruggles, is it? I knew some Ruggles from this place when stationed here. Upstanding family. I have no intention to hang your boys, Mrs. Ruggles. You ought to take them home and see to it that they stay there during our occupation of the town.
Thank you, sir. Oh, thank you. I will tell everyone of your benevolence.
You are very welcome, ma'am. Now, Captain Cooper, please release the prisoners. Driver! Oh, and boys, when you get home, change those coats. And if you are brought before me again for any kind of mischief, you will pay with your lives.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
I told you both to stay out of trouble.
Ma!
You are the oldest, and you were supposed to watch out for John. John! You are the smarter one, and you were supposed to keep him from doing anything to get himself killed. Now, get out!
Ma,
Get
we're
there,
serving
stay
our
there.
country. What about the town? Ow, Ma!
Captain Cooper, down to business. I want to meet with the Chief Burgess. My quartermaster has prepared a second list of requisitions. I will be out at the barracks. I believe the office of my old commandant will serve nicely as my headquarters. Have him meet me there, and he will get my terms for the requisition.
Yes, sir.
Driver, to the barracks.
General! General!
Driver, hold, please. Well, now, if it isn't my dear friend, John McGinnis. How are you, old chap?
Richard, I didn't know it was you. I do feel a bit relieved to see such a familiar face on a day such as this. Some of the church parishioners are terrible afraid that the demon rebels will not allow them to hold Sunday morning services as usual tomorrow morning. May we do so with your blessing, of course.
It is my hope that you do. I am certain that many of my men will appreciate the chance to attend services at one of Carlisle's beautiful houses of worship.
Thank you, thank you. I'll have Reverend Bliss from Second Presbyterian spread the word and...
Go on, John.
And it's been our practice at the end of every service that we offer prayers to President Lincoln. May we do that as well?
Please do. I am certain that right now he needs it. Driver, proceed.
As requested by General Ewell, the town council met with him and they received a second list of requisitions. On the list were 5,000 suits of clothing, including shoes, boots, and hats, 5,000 bushels of grain, 10,000 pounds of shoe leather, 10,000 pounds of horseshoes, 400 pounds of horseshoe nails. These items were also to be deposited at the market house, and if the demands were not met, the town would be searched. On the evening of June 27, 1863, the town settled in for their first night of an uneasy enemy occupation. No children played outside. Women kept the shutters of their houses shut and their doors locked. Not even the bravest men walked the streets, and the Confederate Provost Marshal had a guard posted at the corner of every intersection. Scene 4. A misfortune of war. On Sunday, June 28th, General Ewell declared a day of rest for his road-weary men who had been on the march for 10 days straight. Some churches did open their doors, and a great many of the Confederates attended. Many of the citizens, however, stayed home. Platoons of soldiers searched every block, reaping the benefits of a healthy northern town. Supplies were loaded into wagons and prepared for Ewell's next move, which at that time was to capture Harrisburg. So it went into Monday, the 29th. By and large, the soldiers were well behaved, but not all was calm and genteel.
I don't know. Let's just wait a little bit.
They truly are a gallant bunch, despite being dirty and somewhat ill-spoken.
I would like to see them all just go away, be it north or south. I do not wish to care their direction so long as they are not here. Have I ever felt so anxious in my own home?
Oh, Polly, you must not worry so. We received General Ewell's word of his protection, remember?
A word of protection from a wolf to the hen house. I carry my revolver wherever I go. They will not be taking me so easily.
They are not going to take you away, silly goose. You may find yourself short a chicken or two, but I believe your person to be completely safe. And didn't your father tell you to stop carrying that gun?
My father certainly thinks he knows what is best. But how can you be so sure about our safety as women? You do certainly seem to know a lot about them.
There is an entire brigade camped on the lawn at Dickinson, right across from my front door. And they have guards posted everywhere. How are we to not cross their path?
But you do not need to be friendly and speak to them. The type of woman they could take you for could be one of a lesser vocation. With all these men in town and so far from home, they have probably had to install a revolving door at Madame Jane's body house. Oh, it repulses me to think of it.
They are not like that at all. We had a Colonel Owens and his staff to our house for dinner last evening, and to a man, they were true gentlemen. The Colonel even paid us a little for the trouble of cooking for so many with what little we had.
Paid you? Huh. In what? Their rubbish of paper money. They have been flaunting it all over town, claiming it will soon be worth something. Worth stocking the outhouse, maybe.
Not at all. He paid us in gold. And it was very interesting dinner conversation as well, us comparing our views of the war and he telling us of his home in North Carolina. When the war is over, I should like to go there and see for myself.
How can you be so cavalier about all of this? Have you seen the pile of food growing at the market house? How many of Carlisle's children will go hungry tonight? Or have you given any thought to how Mrs. Caldwell must be feeling? Looking at these rabble and thinking any one of them could be the man responsible for her pain. How wretched it must be for her.
This awful war has touched everyone in one way or another.
And if it just so happens to touch you in such a way that it adds to your pocketbook, then so much the better, right? You know there are those in town who believe the rebel search parties were pointed to certain houses with significant amounts of goods stashed.
What are you insinuating, Polly?
If the corset fits.
You had better hope the rebels don't find out about you carrying that gun. They will surely make you rue the day.
That'll be enough of that.
I have business that needs tending to, Miss McGinnis. Mr. McGinnis, you ought to find your daughter a husband before she gets herself into trouble.
You know what happens to copperheads, Ellen Spar, and no woman worth her salt needs a man to fight her battles.
Polly, you cannot go around calling everyone who disagrees with your point of view a copperhead. A copperhead is someone who believes in the cause of the South while living here in the North. I do not believe that Miss Ellen fits that bill.
But, Father, she had enemy officers over at her house for dinner last night. And were you not the one that told me that any woman who warms her hearth for the enemy is a traitor?
There is a difference between being a traitor and being kind to the enemy while they're camped at your doorstep.
Ugh.
Good afternoon, Mrs. Thorne.
It will be once these rascals are gone from our midst. I cannot even walk down the street without being harassed about my business. Do they not know who I am, Mr. McGinnis? I am Mrs. Susan Thorne, the late
Reverend Thorne's wife. Yes, Mrs. Thorne, I know who you are. And I'm sorry to say that I don't think they are concerned as much as who you are as to what you're doing.
Well, I never. Why on earth wouldn't they be interested to know me? And what business is it of theirs what my business is anyway? Who ever heard of a gentleman anywhere being so inquisitive about what a woman does during her day-to-day? Unless there is a moral intent. They certainly are not used to the manners of good society.
Excuse me, Mrs. Thorne. I have to discuss with my daughter. Have a good day. Polly, where'd you go?
Speaking of those who don't know the manners of good society, might need to turn you inside out to find it.
Vandals! Thieves! Rapscallions! Sheriff!
On us.
These aren't military supplies. This is outright thievery.
You knew the consequences of concealing supplies.
That underwear belongs to my grandmother! Let it go, you scoundrel!
Little lady, I'm gonna suggest you let me go if you know what's good for you.
My husband already opened the store to give you tools and hardware! I'm not gonna allow you to steal our personal belongings!
I said to get off!
Oh, Henry! My silver!
I'm gonna teach you some manners.
You do it, it will be the worst and last decision of your life. Let her go.
Polly! What are you doing? Put that thing down. Are you trying to get yourself killed?
Sheriff, they are taking everything. And this one was about to lay a hand on Mrs. Saxton.
What do they need those size for anyway? What, harvesting our brothers and our sons on the battlefield?
Polly, Anna, you two get out of here. This goes beyond an act of war. This is barbarism. Hey there, Johnny Reb. We agreed to let your town search for items of a military nature. This does not even begin to... Hey, give me back my hat. My Uncle Billy made that hat for me special. Give it back. No harm. Give it back. Come on, give it back. Come on, give it back right now.
Behavior will not be tolerated. Here you go, Sheriff. Sorry about that. They do not all come from good stock, you see.
Thank you, Captain.
I saw the whole thing from there across the way. That woman, who is she?
What woman, sir?
Do not trifle with me, Sheriff. I have no intent of bringing repercussions against her. My man, however, will be punished for his actions. Had they not acted so disgracefully, that woman would most likely not have felt the need to level a pistol on him.
That was old Polly McGinnis.
Oh, Polly McGinnis. She doesn't seem to be much into her 30s.
She is 35 to be exact, and has remained unmarried this entire time.
A spinster, huh? And why has she never been married? She's certainly pretty enough and doesn't seem to have an ounce of fear in her.
Yeah, that lack of fear is exactly what all the brave men in Carlisle are afeared of.
Yes, I see. Well, somebody at some point ought to write a book about her.
Agreed. Captain, Mr. Saxton here believes that the items being taken from his hardware store down the street surpass the limit set by your general's orders.
I gave everything that I could. If you search the entire Cumberland Valley, you'll not attain the demand for 10,000 pounds of horseshoes.
Yes, I see. It is a misfortune of war that supplies must be gleaned from the civilian populace. I speak from fact that the state of war in which we leave Carlisle is no different than your army has left our southern towns. However, I have been authorized by General Ewell to pay for reimbursed supplies.
Well, that's more like it.
You feel we have profited unfairly? Here, you take this.
See, Sheriff, I knew that nothing could be resolved with a cool head and conversation. And what the devil is this? Confederate money?
Like I said, I have been authorized by General Yu.
What the hell with you, your authority, and the hell with General Yule. Damn him for the one-legged bandit that he is.
Now, Henry, you better quell that temper of yours or you're going to lose more than a couple of hammers and saws.
Justice is not something we turn a blind eye to, Mr. Saxton. Why, just this morning we caught these men stealing from a lady's garden, pilfering.
Well, that does make me feel a mite better. But still no excuse. It's still a man's livelihood.
Just give it a fortnight, Mr. Saxton. Our money will become the new national currency, and you will have a head start in your fortune. Good day, gentlemen.
Come, Henry. Let's assess your losses and file a report for when all this is over.
The evening of June 29th saw the Confederates getting ready to move out. General Ewell believed their target of attacking Harrisburg would be achieved the next day. Fate, however, had other plans. An orderly from overall Confederate General Robert E. Lee reached Ewell at his Carlisle Barracks headquarters. It said in part, "If you have not already progressed on the road, and if you have no good reason against it, I desire you to move in the direction of Gettysburg, and thus you can join your other division of General Early's, which is east of the mountains." With these new orders, Ewell made preparations to leave Carlisle via the South Hanover Road, cross the mountains at Holly Gap, and link up with Robert E. Lee in Gettysburg the next day, Wednesday, July the 1st, 1863. A day that would live in infamy, not only for Carlisle, but for the whole country.
Captain Cooper, move the men out.
Yes, sir.
Scene 5, the hardship of Annie Caldwell, followed by Scene 6, picnic with guns. Tuesday, July 1st, dawned bright and clear. 4 days of enemy occupation, the town felt a bit of a reprieve. But there was still much angst among the populace. Where is the Union Army? And if they're defeated again, as with so many previous battles, will the rebels return again to mount a defense against Harrisburg? So many questions, so few answers.
It's so quiet, almost peaceful, like it was before all of this. You remember we would wake early and walk through our valley and watch it come to life before us. The children are fine, a little hungry since the rebels took what they wanted. But I hear the town fathers are coming up with a system of payment for losses. People who lost livestock, foodstuffs. What about dead husbands? Can I make a claim to have him brought home? I hear them talk about me. 10 months dead and she still writes him letters. Writes letters to a ghost. If you are a ghost, James, haunt me. Haunt me for every day and every night of the rest of this war. And for the rest of my life. Yeah, you can run around. It's fine.
Huzzah! Huzzah! Oh! Huzzah!
Rebels are going at last!
Woo! They're gone! So excited. We're done! They're gone! Woo! Huzzah! 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 Woo! Huzzah! Woo! I'm cheering for our troops! Woo! Woo! Come cheer for the Union! Cheer!
Fine job, Sergeant. Carry on. No sign of rebels, sir. From what the town says, the infantry left yesterday morning, and the cavalry trailed soon behind them. From what I can ascertain, it was the cavalry we skirmished with at Sporting Hill. I've sent out some squads to check the state of town and report back to me. Thank you, Sergeant. Ladies and gentlemen of Carlisle, I am General John Ewan, commanding 4th Brigade, New York State National Guard.
Excuse me, my friends.
I am here
To
from
grab my table.
Harrisburg to reconstitute order and safety to Carlisle. We skirmished with the rebels outside the gates of Harrisburg. And it is my pleasure to inform you that the Capitol did not fall. The government and the Union still stand in Pennsylvania. My men, while better behaved than the rebels, are still men, and have not eaten much these past few days. So any sustenance you could provide would be a welcome tribute to their loyalty and bravery to our cause.
Three cheers for General Young! Hip hip!
Huzzah! 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 Oh, isn't this magnificent? Finally a reprieve.
This is the most jubilant time. It's me right before July 4th Independence Day. So much cause for celebration.
I cannot define the weight that was lifted while watching the stars and stripes coming into town. Carlisle has been delivered from the hands of the demon rebels.
We have lost so much, and yet we will continue to give to this great cause. For all the search and seizure of our properties, I know that Carlisle will give gloriously defeat our gallant boys in blue.
The town is much altered, but when the merchants retrieve their goods from Harrisburg, the farmers harvest their crops, and business survives, I think the town will put on its usual appearance.
Indeed so. We have survived a miraculous event and should be eternally grateful that this town did not become a battleground.
I thought it was going to after Polly McGinnis stopped that from thrashing Mrs. Faxon. They were all talking about getting revenge on her.
I would have liked to see them try. She would have given them a real union
Yes.
My, it does my heart good to see smiles on faces again. I thought those rebels would never leave. My, how the town has turned out to greet our troops. This is turning into a right joyous day.
Good afternoon, Mrs. Ruggles. Hello, Sarah, Sadie.
Good afternoon, Lucy.
Hi, Miss Lucy.
It was so awful when the rebels were holding your boys, Mrs. Ruggles, and the utter despair that would come from losing 2 more of Carlisle's brave sons. You stood up to them with such bravado.
Oh, thank you, Lucy. I refuse to think what I would have done if something had happened to my boys.
I'm so proud to have such heroes as my brothers. I don't know what I would have done without them.
As you should be proud. Look at how the town is giving. After the hardship of the past 4 days, this shows Carlisle's patriotism and gracious nature. There is not another town in all this valley or any other that I would rather call home.
Hear, hear. Look at all of these soldiers, sister. We are safe now.
Oh, Catherine, I'm so glad you and your family are safe.
And yours as well, Amelia. My, oh my, the children were oh so frightened.
With so many enemy soldiers in town, we were afraid to leave our home.
And the searches? I cannot believe that Chief Burgess Ziegler allowed that. When we found out they would be searching homes, my husband buried a ham and some preserves out back behind our house. I was so frightened when I heard the knock on the door that if the hidden food was found, we would be arrested. But thankfully, it was not discovered.
What an intelligent thought. If only we had done the same. Unfortunately, our cupboards are now bare, and with the railroad bridge over the Tor destroyed, who knows when the train cars will return with the stores that were removed.
If only that bunch from New York would have stayed, I would have joined them in keeping those rebs from our midst.
Well, we cannot go on in a state of worry. In light of recent events, we must wear our smiles.
Of course. I am overjoyed with the news of the arrival of our troops. Let us put down our worries and picnic in the square. The children are famished, and it appears the soldiers are as well.
Yes, to the picnic.
Huzzah for the Union.
Take charge, men. The Carlisle militia is here. We will add to your ranks the courage and fortitude that can only come from defending one's own town.
Thank you, Sheriff. It is always of great advantage to have men in the ranks who know the lay of the land.
What are your orders, General?
For now, I am attaching you to my brigade of New Yorkers here at the square. Captain Kingsley, this is Sheriff McCartney. I am attaching him to the 37th Regiment. See to it his men get placed when we fall in.
Yes, sir.
Robert! What on earth are you doing?
Defending our town. Those rabble came in and took what they pleased and must be stopped. All you able-bodied men, fetch your guns and ready yourselves!
We're with you!
Let no traitor tread our soil!
Such bravery from the men of Carlisle. Here's your chance, Conrad.
Yes, but what about the baby?
What about the baby? We just found out I'm pregnant. The emergency enlistment is only while the danger is imminent.
In these uncertain times, I should stay here to give you the kind of protection that only a husband can provide.
What about the protection of Carlisle? What kind of world do you want a child growing up in?
I want you to think carefully on what you're doing, who you may be leaving behind. The children need their father.
The children will grow up proud to know that their father believes in them living in a better country. So much so that I am willing to fight for it.
And what if you are killed?
My darling Catherine, if I am to die for my country so that those under the heels of the oppressors may be free, then it is my honor to do so.
I do believe that with this many troops here in Carlisle, the town can rest easy.
But I thought you wanted to join the fighting. With such a strong moral fiber, this is the opportunity you've been waiting for.
What is this for?
If you are not willing to get up your rifle and fight, you better put this on.
My darling children, Isabella, it is a great honor to know that your family has sacrificed so much for the preservation of our great country. Do whatever you can to help your mother.
Yes, Father. Our family is a proud one.
And Izzy, now that the Rebs took our mean old rooster, you don't need me to help fetch water from the well. Remember to say your prayers each night.
I'll never forget, Father.
I shall not think to be gone long.
You have always made me so proud to be your wife. Go, Robert. Go fight for the glorious cause of the Union.
Scene 7. The Shelling.
Huzzah! Huzzah! Huzzah!
General Smith, sir.
General Ewing, how are we to maintain a fighting-sized force when I saw half of your brigade scattered as stragglers between here and Harrisburg?
Sir, the men are not used to the rigors of the march in the summer heat. I will send out officers at once to round them up. Captain, send out a detail to get the stragglers moving. Make haste.
Yes, sir. Sergeant.
Sir!
Take a platoon at the pike to gather the stragglers and get them here. Use your bayonets if you have to.
Yes, sir. Now then, General, what is the state of affairs here?
Sir, the rebels have moved off to the south. Citizens have reported that the soldiers talked about a place called Gettysburg. I found it on a map about 35 miles to the south. Looks like a major crossroads in that county. It is my summarization that if General Meade moves with any haste, he should be able to get to the town before the rebels do and be able to concentrate his army on the hills surrounding it.
Well, any movement from Meade will be more than what we saw from McClellan.
Indeed, sir. The rebels laid a hefty burden on the town for supplies, took what was not freely given, but no serious harm, sir.
All right, General. What are your dispositions here?
Ordered the 22nd Regiment and Landis' battery of artillery to guard south of the town in case the rebels turn around. I have the 37th Regiment positioned here at the square.
Very good, General. Colonel Brisbane's Pennsylvanians are coming in now to strengthen your left flank. Any word from the 22nd on enemy sighting?
None, sir. The rebels appear to have left the area. We did get some volunteers from the town militia. Sheriff McCartney.
Yes, sir.
This is General Smith. He's in command of all the troops in this vicinity.
Your reputation precedes you, sir.
This is Sheriff McCartney. He is captain of local militia.
Well, I appreciate you and your men offering their services, Captain. And right now, I am in no position to turn them down. Your men obviously know the town and the people, so you could be of invaluable service should the need arise. You stay close.
Sir.
General Ewing, get your men to work on reestablishing the telegraph lines up the pike. General Kniper's back towards Mechanicsburg doing the same. We must get communications open to General Couch in Harrisburg.
Yes, sir. I will get some men on it. If I may be so bold, sir.
Go ahead, Joe. Speak your mind. Save the formalities for the high command.
Right now, we are cut off from Harrisburg and Washington with the Confederate Army in between. Puts us in a very dangerous predicament. Can we expect further reinforcements?
Well, what you say is dreadfully correct. And it will all depend on how the bureaucracy goes for General Couch. Do you know that I had to leave behind the 11th New York Artillery because their men demanded wagons to ride in instead of marching?
That damn Colonel Forbes, he has not done a day of soldiering in his life. Any word on the Confederate cavalry?
Well, our latest intelligence reports that Jeb Stuart himself was spotted over in Hanover yesterday, supposedly heading west to link up with the main body of their army, so we should not have any trouble from them.
Excellent.
Continue setting up your defenses as you see fit. You're doing good work here, General. I'll set up my headquarters nearby and have an aide inform you as to its location.
Yes, sir.
Now, Lieutenant, I am going to... Lieutenant!
Sir! Sorry, sir.
Now, Sam, I'm going to need you to, talk to that girl.
Sir?
You heard me, Lieutenant. That's an order.
Yes, sir. Hello, miss. Have you ever seen such a grand sight?
Oh, why no. This has been a most inspiring change of circumstance. All of us ladies were terrified with the rebels about. I didn't want to leave my house.
Well, you can breathe easy now, miss. I can protect you. Lieutenant Samuel Carey, at your service.
Miss Lucy Gardner, sir.
Miss Lucy Gardner, Do you waltz?
Oh, my! Lieutenant, are all you soldier boys so forward?
Only in the face of such beauty, my dear.
Oh, so gallantly spoken.
As the citizens and soldiers feasted, the men and women of Carlisle regaled the soldiers with tales of living under enemy rule. Likewise, the soldiers described to the citizens the great earthen forts that had been built on the west shore of Harrisburg, and the running skirmishes at Sporting Hill and Oyster Point the previous days. The day turned into one of joy and merriment. Not an unhappy face was to be seen, as if the awful terror and destruction of war had simply passed Carlisle by.
Artillery! Militia! Form up! On me!
Reform ranks! Reform ranks! General Ewing, take direct charge of the 22nd Regiment. Get them in position facing east. And order Landis's battery back to the square immediately.
Yes, sir.
Captain Kingsley, get word to Colonel Brisbane. Tell him to hold his positions to the north of town. Keep the Harrisburg Pike closed. And report to me any enemy sightings in that area.
Yes, sir.
Throw out some skirmishers there. I want to know what we're up against.
Scene 8. Flag of truce.
Sir? Flag of truce from the enemy!
Slow down.
What do you want, Reb?
I'm Major William Morgan, 1st Virginia Cavalry. I have a message for the general commanding this force, but that is not you now, is it, Lieutenant?
Flag of truce or not, I ought to have you shot.
Lieutenant Carey! That is no way to treat our guest. I am Brigadier General William Smith. You have a message for me, Major?
I do. From Brigadier General Fitzhugh Lee, commanding this brigade of Major General Jeb Stewart's cavalry, Army of Northern Virginia. You are hereby demanded to surrender to Carlisle. Moving. Whoop. Buddy, come on. Come on now.
Sergeant.
Come on now. Thank you, Yankee. I appreciate that. All right. You are hereby demanded to surrender the town of Carlisle to our skilled cavalry and surrender all men at arms at your command at this place. I'm further authorized to inform you, sir, if you do not comply with a reasonable amount of time, the town will be shelled.
This is absurd. Carlisle streets are filled with civilians.
Enough, Lieutenant. Well, Major,
I appreciate it.
If you have the authority to permit, I would like to take a reasonable amount of time to confer with my officers. In the meantime, get your horse under control and water him if you like. And here, Lieutenant, have a cigar while you wait. Oh, don't mind my young lieutenant there. First time seeing a Johnny up close has him a bit rough. While you're here, you are safe. Ease up some. Right now they have us by the short hairs.
As the Confederate courier, holding his flag of truce upright and visible at all times, waited, General Smith discussed his very few options that he had with his officers. The outlook before them looked bleak. General Smith had 800 infantry and just a few pieces of artillery on hand. Almost to a man, they were raw recruits, having only volunteered earlier as emergency militia. Some had just fired their rifles for the first time 2 days earlier in the skirmishes with the Confederate cavalry outside the defenses of Harrisburg. Others had never fired a rifle in their life.
If we withdraw to the northwest, we can form a defensive line on those bluffs overlooking the creek.
It would be a strong position. Certainly not something easily accessible to that cavalry.
There's a good ford and a bridge over the Conneduina Creek along this road that leads up to Wagner's Gap.
Have you considered what it means to the men in the town if you were to move out? The Rebs would have uninhibited access from the entire road system from the Susquehanna all the way up to the Mason-Dixon line.
That is something to consider.
Suggestions were heard from the more affluent citizens, and politicians said Smith should either capitulate to the demand or call for a retreat. The less privileged felt that too much of their livelihood had already been seized in the prior day's enemy occupation. For that to happen again would surely leave them destitute. Among those who had no love for the idea of living again under the rule of the rebel banner was the well-known 35-year-old Charlotte McGinnis, known as Polly to her friends. Both her grandfathers served in combat. Her mother's father was Commodore Richard Henry O'Brien of Revolutionary War fame. Her father's father, John M. McGinnis, was a colonel in the Pennsylvania militia during the War of 1812. Fighting was in Polly's blood. While she poured coffee for the officers and realized that it was quite certain that the town would soon be left again to face the clemency of the enemy, she made straight for General Smith. Polly, Charlotte Robeson McGinnis, whatever you have in your head, let it stay there.
That's all right, John. Let's hear what the little lady has to say.
Do you mean to tell me you plan to leave us to this rabble?
Well, miss, the overall consensus view is to withdraw from Carlisle and avoid the calamity of battle that might result in the deaths of women and children. I am vastly outnumbered here, and my men are raw militia, facing the best trained and hardest fighting cavalry since Wellington.
With all due respect, you leave, and what then? They take everything that isn't nailed down. My grandfather served in the Revolution. He survived 10 years of captivity by the Barbary pirates. This coffee cup belonged to him. He said the strength and courage to soldier on came from drinking his coffee out of this very cup. Here, General, have a sip and listen. Have you considered not what, but who you would be leaving behind? Annie Caldwell's husband was killed at Antietam, leaving behind her and their 4 young children. Ever since, she's been working her fingers to the bone trying to make ends meet. Young Margaret Murray has been sewing socks day after day for the Sanitary Commission to send to the troops out on the field. When the rebels came, they took her whole stock of finished socks and all of her fabric to make more. Mary Jane Ruggles' sons were almost hung by the rebels for destroying supplies left behind at the barracks. And Mr. Saxon's, the hardware store, just up the street there, it was almost completely wiped out. Now, General, look around. Look around, sir. Look into the faces of these people who all in some way have given to the cause of preserving these here United States. Look at them. Tell them you are going to abandon them. Now I tell you under no uncertain terms, do not surrender the town, General. Not so long as one brick stands on top of the other.
Major, my compliments to General Lee.
Really?
And You may tell General Lee to shut away and be damned!
Very well. You have 30 minutes for the women and children to find shelter. General Lee suggests they take to their cell.
Civilians! Clear the square! Take cover! Captain Landis! Bring your gun forward! Place it there!
Oh, man. Watch out for battery. This way. Is that?
I don't know.
Ooh. Oh, man, come on, man.
Clear the way for that gun! Bring it forward!
Whoa, buddy, whoa. Still.
General Ewan!
Worse he's been.
We must get word to General Knight. Tell him to assemble his force with all possible speed and bring it to this place immediately.
I will send my aide, Captain Doherty. He knows the area. And on a good horse, he's the finest rider this side of the Susquehanna.
Very good, General. You see to it.
Yes, sir. Captain Doherty! Captain Doherty!
Okay. They yelled at me.
Scene 10. General Lee tries again. And Mrs. Thorne. While General Smith and General Ewan held out hope for reinforcements, the town held its breath. Shells continued to scream overhead and explode in the streets. What Smith did not know was that General Jeb Stuart's cavalry was almost at the end of their combat capability. Their ranks had been reduced by the difficult campaign through Virginia, Maryland, and into Pennsylvania. Repeated engagements and an insufficient amount of food and rest were taking a heavy toll. As Brigadier General Fitzhugh Lee's brigade of 1,500 troopers rode up the York Road to Carlisle, his rations were now expended. His horses were worn out. His men were numb with exhaustion to the point of falling asleep in the saddle.
Okay. Yeah,
They've been riding and fighting for 9 days straight.
And then had to do a bunch of insurance claims for broken windows.
Sir! Another flag of truce!
Okay.
Well, maybe General Lee's gonna offer to surrender to me. Wouldn't that put a bee in the bonnet of her tall hats back in Washington?
With all due respect, sir, why, Reb, look me in the eye one more time after they fired into this town full of civilians.
It's all right, Lieutenant. I'll handle
I
it.
might.
General,
No, I just.
am I to surmise by the look on your face that by now you know we mean business? Well, that was Captain Breather's work. Stewart's horse artillery, a very skilled officer. By my estimation, about 100 rounds of case shot, solid shot, and canister fired from 4 of his artillery pieces, or 3-inch ordnance rifles. Well, the boys are making a bit of a game out of seeing what spires we can hit throughout town. I watched in my field glasses as we hit the Dickinson College building. Oh, looks like we're a little low on the courthouse. I should have to tell the gunners just their elevating screws. Well, we also noticed, General, that you're not firing back with your own artillery. Well, now, why is that?
Major, if you did not ride in here just to view your handiwork and gloat about it, why the devil are you here?
You know, General Lee takes no pleasure in this bombardment. Well, Carlisle Barracks was his first post after graduation from West Point, and he has many friends and fond memories of the town. Why, some even say there's a very special lady who still resides here that won the General's favor all those years ago.
Then pray tell me, Major, why does he continue its destruction?
Fondness cannot outweigh duty during war.
Get to the point, Major.
Will
Before
General Lee
I change my mind about having Landis Battery hold that fire.
Will General Lee respectfully request you reconsider your decision regarding surrender?
You can tell General Lee that I will see him in a much hotter climate first.
Very well.
General, sir, it appears the rebels set fire to the board across the creek.
Let me see. Jesus, Mary, and Joseph. They've got one of their guns trained on the gasworks next to it. If that thing blows, it'll send us all to hell. Lieutenant, find me the man in charge of those works. There's got to be a shut-off valve to town somewhere. And get me Sheriff McCartney.
Yes, sir.
With the Lancey's lumber yard ablaze and the nearby holding tanks for the gasworks pierced by artillery shells, the leaking gas quickly caught fire and sent flames shooting into the sky like a devil's tongue licking the heavens. General Smith knew it was only a matter of time before the fire followed the pipes into town and blew Carlisle off the map. The situation looked dire. To add to the consternation of the event, Fitzhugh Lee ordered the barracks to be burned. One by one, the buildings were torched, making Carlisle the northernmost military installation of the entire Civil War, to be captured by the Confederates and thusly destroyed.
General, sir, I have the men you requested. George Wise is the superintendent of the gasworks.
Mr. Wise, where is the main gas shutoff?
Just the side of the creek over by that bridge.
If I provide you with cover fire, do you think you could get down there and shut it off? It means saving your town, but it may also mean giving your life.
The words of the great patriot Nathan Hale, I regret that I have but one life to lose for my country.
Very good, sir. Sheriff McCartney, pick some of your best marksmen to go along. If we can keep those red batteries ducking while Mr. White shuts off the valve, it may just see this thing through yet.
Consider it done, General.
Lieutenant, you go with them. And Sam, try not to let anyone get killed.
Ma'am! What happened? You should not be out here! Are you injured?
My house, my beautiful house!
Which one is it?
Do you not know who I am? I am Mrs. Susan Thornton, the late Reverend Thorne's wife. My house is the big brick one on the corner of Bedford and High, right across from the prison.
Yes, I'm sure it is lovely. What happened, Mrs. Thorne?
Those rebels, they shot my house. I was just in my sitting room, minding my own business on the settee, looking out the window and watching those awful men and their deadly work when I saw the smoke from the cannons. Not just a couple seconds later, my entire house shook like the devil himself had grabbed a hold of it.
And why were you not taking shelter in your cellar, as instructed?
I am Mrs. Susan Thorne, the late Reverend Thorne's wife. No rebel will dictate my actions.
Sergeant, get that doctor from down the street. I think this woman is in shock.
Oh, then I had a kettle of tea on the stove, and just when I had gotten up to get it, another one of those demon cannonballs came straight through my wall and exploded on the settee where I had just been. It was horrific. I just wanted my cup of tea. I left it on the stove.
Ma'am, you cannot go back out there. Where's that doctor?
Yes, sir!
Mrs. Stone! Why can't you listen when anybody tells you anything?
You mean she is always like this?
Yeah, she is. So, she is rich, therefore we call her eccentric, not weird. She has this crazy notion that she wants to meet the devil and have her picture made with him.
Say that again, Doc?
She tells everyone that one of her life goals is to meet the devil and have her picture made with him.
I bet old Jester was trying to facilitate that meeting.
Sergeant! Doctor! Get this weird lady out of here!
I told you, Captain, she is rich, therefore she is eccentric, not weird.
Ouch!
Do you not know who
Yes,
I am?
I know.
I am Mrs. Susan Thornton, the late Reverend Thorne's wife. You cannot do this to me.
I'm taking you home. I take you to the prison.
General!
Talking about
Sir,
I know, yes.
it is done. The valve is off.
The valve is off, you're sure?
Yes, it is, sir. It's off.
Very good, Lieutenant. The town is in your debt.
Do not believe it. Here comes that rep again and with this white flag.
Well, if he's calling for our surrender again, maybe this time I'll let you shoot him, Sam.
I gladly would, sir. But it looks like he's not alone. He has a prisoner with him.
Son of a... It's Captain Doherty.
General Smith, Lieutenant, I believe we have something here that belongs to you.
Are you wounded, Captain?
But my pride. Spread out all across the pike, and they got the drop on me, sir. We tried to break through, but my horse was hit.
Thought maybe if you're tired of hearing from me that maybe one of your own could persuade your decision.
To surrender?
Well, that would be very generous of you to spare the town from further destruction. I'm sure the inhabitants here would not be amiss to our continuing the bombardment.
The answer has been given twice before, Major.
Very well. General Lee must be feeling mighty generous. He's asked me to inform you that if you're not willing to comply with this demand, that we will halt the shelling until 10 a.m. tomorrow, at which time the entire remainder of Jeb Stewart's cavalry division will be rested and in position to attack the town outright. With the capture of your man here, you must know you are cut off from Harrisburg and will receive no reinforcements from there. If our estimation is correct, the Southern troops who are here, Ewell's Corps, are now between you and the Army of the Potomac. You're isolated here, General. Think on that before you ponder your next move.
Well, Major, you may thank General Lee for so graciously informing me of my obvious circumstances. Now, what about Captain Doherty?
Well, he will have fine accommodations at Libby Prison in Richmond. 10 a.m., General Smith. More time than I would have given.
This third attempt to garner a surrender would be his last. Around 1 a.m., July the 2nd, Major Andrew Reed Venable, who had been earlier sent to ascertain the main army's disposition, reached General Stewart outside of Carlisle and informed him that the Army of Northern Virginia and the Army of the Potomac had clashed at Gettysburg earlier that day, and a full-scale engagement was underway. His orders were to cease all other operations and report to Robert E. Lee in Gettysburg immediately. At 3 a.m., General Fitzhugh Lee ordered 3 parting shots fired into Carlisle with the intention of, and I quote, merely to let them know we're still about. After that last salvo, all his artillery was limbered up.
Wow. I don't think those are supposed to go off when they did.
And his entire command was turned south. As the sun rose on July 2nd, 1863, all the Confederates were gone. Every soldier and civilian let out a collective sigh of relief.
The bombardment is over.
Huzzah!
Huzzah! General Smith, sir, General Smith, Lieutenant Carey, the ladies of Carlisle have prepared something for you and your men as a thank you.
I wish I wasn't.
Oh, Miss
Boo!
Front on. Sorry.
What kind of show show is this?
We'll rally round the flag, boys, we'll rally once again, shouting the battle cry of freedom. We will rally from the hillside, we'll gather from the plain, shouting the battle cry of freedom. The Union forever, hurrah, boys, hurrah! Down with the traitors and up with the stars, while we rally round the flag, boys, we'll rally once again, shouting the battle cry of freedom. So through the call from the east and from the west, shouting the battle cry of freedom, and we'll hurl the rebel crew from the land that we love best, shouting the battle cry of freedom. The Union forever, hurrah, boys, hurrah! Down with the traitors and up with the stars, while we rally round the flag, boys, we'll rally once again, shouting the battle cry of freedom. Huzzah!
For the approximately 134 shells that were fired into town, the casualties were minimal. Only 17 cases for Smith, and only 1 for Lee. Smith's command spent July 2nd in Carlisle, were reinforced by General Knipe and other units from Harrisburg, and then ordered south to assist General Meade and the Army of the Potomac if necessary. With the Confederate defeat at Gettysburg on July 3rd and their subsequent retreat back into Virginia over the next week, the majority of Smith's Pennsylvania troops returned to Harrisburg to be mustered out, while the New Yorkers were returned home. Confederate forces would never again occupy Carlisle or the Cumberland Valley. Present arms! Forward, march! Present arms! Fall out! Thus ended the shelling of Carlisle. It was best summed up by the late Dr. Richard Summers. Despite all the hardships and the ordeals, the soldiers still do their duty. They try to gain something out of it, to try to overhaul the town into surrendering, and yet the defenders of the town, inexperienced though they were, are willing to fight back to protect what is important to them. Does the Battle of does the Battle of Carlisle change the course of the Civil War? No. Does the Battle of Carlisle change the course of the Gettysburg campaign? Not really. Does the Battle of Carlisle serve as an example of heroism, courage, fortitude, determination in the face of adversity? Yes! And thus it underscores the humanity of the war. Battlefields are full of statues in marble and bronze. But it is not men in marble and bronze. It is real live men in flesh and blood that fight in war. Some such men from Pennsylvania, from New York, from Virginia, were fighting right here in the Battle of Carlisle on July the 1st, 1863. The Civil War would rage on for another 2 years. General Robert E. Lee finally surrendered the battered remnants of his once powerful Confederate Army of Northern Virginia to General Ulysses S. Grant and the Union Army of the Potomac at Appomattox Courthouse on April 9th, 1865. Other Confederate armies would soon follow suit, but it was not until August 20th, 1866, a full 16 months later, after Lee surrendered, that President Andrew Johnson issued a proclamation formally ending all hostilities. His words in part said that the insurrection is at an end, and that peace, order, tranquility, and civil authority now exists in and throughout the whole of the United States of America. These words were spoken at the sacrifice of hundreds of thousands of lives. A sacrifice that gained the freedom of 4 million enslaved people and officially ended the American Civil War.
Historic Carlisle, we thank you very, very much for your attendance today. We hope you enjoyed it. We hope you learned something. We hope that we've inspired you to find out more about Carlisle's rich history. Now, we do have to get the street reopened. However, as soon as this is done, the Sons of Union Veterans Carlisle Camp 50 will be rededicating the Civil War Monument to honor the men from Cumberland County who fought and died during the American Civil War. We ask you to join us there, please. Thank you.
But first, to Mr. Joe, 3 cheers. Hip, hip, huzzah! Hip, hip, huzzah!